When I was reborn to the moment Zhou Ian proposed divorce for the second time, I signed the divorce papers without a moment's hesitation. Zhou Ian had no idea that a year later, the Zhou Group would suffer massive internal deficits and losses due to betrayal by the head office's top brass. The situation would worsen under the coordinated attacks of business rivals, ultimately ending in bankruptcy. The once glorious Zhou Group fell from grace overnight. Zhou Ian, the heir to the empire, was reduced to a penniless, down-and-out man, so poor he could only afford to live in a basement and eat instant noodles. Back then, I truly loved him. I was willing to endure hardship by his side, even if he had nothing. Just being with him was enough for me. But I never imagined that even then, Zhou Ian's heart still belonged only to his cherished white moonlight, even when I was pregnant and in labor. A high-risk case as diagnosed by the doctor, he abandoned me to care for her child. In the end, my child and I died on the operating table, waiting in vain for his signature, while her son had nothing more than a mild cold. Guqingyu, stop making a scene and just sign. What's the point of dragging out this loveless marriage? I know you've wasted your youth all these years by my side, so I won't treat you unfairly. I'll provide you with enough material comfort to live in luxury for the rest of your life, something many people could never achieve even with a lifetime of effort. Zhou Ian initially felt a twinge of guilt, but by the time he said this, his tone had taken on a condescending, almost patronizing air. I was just a girl from an ordinary family, truly not in his league. Back then, I was utterly infatuated and refused to consider anything else. Deep down, I believed that by not wanting anything from Zhou Ian, not even touching the living allowance he provided after marriage, supporting myself instead, I could create equality between us. I thought this would keep my purest love for him untainted by money. I never bothered to dig into Zhou Ian's true thoughts. Looking back now, it's no wonder he had that air of superiority. He never truly respected me. I was just a convenient comfort for his lonely moments. Well, thank you, President Zhou, for allowing an ordinary person like me to rise to prominence overnight, I said with a smile, having lived a second life. These words held no sarcasm, only genuine sincerity. The bankruptcy of the Zhou family and the hardships I endured with Zhou Ian had taught me the true importance of money. Once you finally see through the fog of romantic obsession, that's when you achieve true clarity in life. All those past events have faded into mist, less substantial than the cold, hard cash in my hand. A man can betray you, but money never will. Zhou Ian was the first man I ever fell in love with, back in high school, when he rescued me from the bullies. He seemed like a god descended from heaven. From that moment, I was hopelessly, stubbornly, and irrevocably in love with him. Even though his heart belonged to another girl, his cherished white moonlight, I still loved him quietly, from afar. When his white moonlight abandoned him to go abroad, he was utterly heartbroken. He married me almost as an act of spite, and I didn't mind a bit. I was overjoyed to get that marriage certificate with him. I thought, even if Zhou Ian didn't love me, my genuine care and devotion would eventually win him over. For over 8 years, more than 3,000 days and nights, I took care of him, supported him, and stood by him. I even gave him one of my own kidneys after his drinking ruined his during his post-bankruptcy despair. I thought that would be enough to warm even the coldest of hearts, but the moment his white moonlight returned from abroad after a divorce, weeping and playing the victim in front of him, he forgave her instantly. Then he placed the divorce papers in front of me, insisting with cold determination that we end our marriage. In my past life, when Zhou Ian presented the divorce papers, I was in disbelief and refused to sign them no matter what. Zhou Ian probably knew I needed time to come to terms with it, so he gave me some space. A month later, he brought up the divorce again, seeing how utterly heartbroken I was. His conscience must have gotten the better of him, this time. The terms in the divorce settlement were far more generous. On top of an extra 20 million, he also gave me the villa in the mid-levels and 2 prime retail spaces, each over 300 square meters, in the city's largest downtown mall. Back then, my whole world revolved around that man who didn't love me. I couldn't have cared less about material possessions and stubbornly refused to divorce him. Zhou Ian brought it up time and again, his attitude growing increasingly harsh. It wasn't until the Zhou family's business went bankrupt, stripping him of the means and ability to care for his beloved, that he finally stopped mentioning divorce. He couldn't bear the thought of his cherished Xinli suffering. Yet, after I stood by him through his darkest days and things began to turn around, after he rebuilt his fortune, he went right back to being at Xinli's beck and call, even when I was in labor. I wonder if he'll feel even a flicker of remorse when he learns that both the child and I died on the operating table. Qingyu, don't say things in anger. I genuinely hope you have a good life from now on. Look over the terms of the divorce agreement. If there's any clause you're not satisfied with, just say so. I'll accommodate you, Zhou Ian said gently. In all these years since we've been together. This was the first time he'd shown such patience, and it was all to coax me into signing the divorce papers. What a piece of work. He won't be capable of liking anything once I've taken his head off, given a second chance at life, stripped of my former glory. I look at Zhou Ian's still handsome face and find it utterly repulsive and nauseatingly hypocritical. Hearing Zhou Ian's words, I picked up the divorce agreement on the table and examined it carefully, seeing that, aside from the assets he was dividing with me, there was also a provision for a regular annual alimony of 1 million. My mood improved considerably. The only catch is, the Zhou family business is going bankrupt next year. These installment payments are essentially a bounce check. I'd take a discount from Zhou Ian in a heartbeat if it meant getting the money right now. Qingyu, do you have something on your mind? Seeing me scrutinize the divorce papers seriously. Zhou Ian didn't believe I actually wanted a divorce. He assumed I was just stalling with another tactic, and asked when he noticed my strange expression. I ignored whatever Zhou Ian was thinking and pointed to a clause in the agreement. If we're getting divorced, let's make it clean, no contact afterwards, no messy ties, and you don't need to pay the alimony in yearly installments either. Just give me a lump sum. After I finished speaking, seeing Zhou Ian stunned, I added, I'm 29 this year. Even if I only live to 80, that's still 51 years. I'll round it down. You just need to give me 50 million. Qingyu, what's 5 million to a young master of the Zhou family like you? It's nothing. If you're not willing to pay, then we simply won't get this divorce. I said it on purpose, certain that Zhou Ian would think I was just stalling for time. Fine. A lump sum it is. Qingyu, if you have any other demands, just state them all now. Hearing Zhou Ian's words, a surge of delight shot through me. I was itching to agree and sign the property transfer papers right then and there. But what I said was, Zhou Ian, I've loved you for all these years. I've poured my youth into you, and I would have done anything for you. Are you really going to divorce me for Shenli? Without a single thought for all the time we've shared, once you sign this. Don't you dare regret it. Shenli had been pulling out all the stops lately, abandoned by her overseas husband and left with nothing. She had her sights set squarely on Zhou Ian, a prime catch. She'd sweet-talked him into a complete infatuation, and now all he could think about was rushing to the rescue of his poor, pitiful white moonlight. At my words, that feigned look of guilt reappeared on Zhou Ian's face, yet, his resolve remained firm. Qingyu, I'm sorry. I don't have feelings for you, and Qingyu, she's at her most vulnerable right now. She needs me. Zhou Ian, you'll regret this. With a look of utter heartbreak, after Zhou Ian had his secretary revise the divorce agreement, I signed it swiftly and decisively, tears streaming down my face. Seeing me sign so decisively, that bastard Zhou Ian, who clearly has a thing for being treated like crap, shot me a suspicious glance and began to hesitate. Panic surged within me. A fortune and a bright future were right within my grasp. How could this asshole back out now? Absolutely not. I cried even more pitifully and, as if in a fit of pique, slammed the pen down in front of Zhou Ian. Sign it right now. Once you do, we'll go straight to the Civil Affairs Bureau. There are plenty of good men in this world. Do you really think Gu Qingyu can't live without you? In his heart, Zhou Ian was convinced I truly couldn't live without him. After all, I was once campus belle material, which was why I got bullied, but all these years, despite countless decent men pursuing me, I never gave them a second glance. My heart belonged solely to Zhou Ian. I wouldn't even look at another man. All these years of my blind devotion and lovesick foolishness gave him absolute confidence. Zhou Ian, who had been hesitant, now cast aside all doubt, thinking I was just acting out of spite. He seized the moment and signed the divorce papers right away. He probably figured that if he hesitated for even a second, I might change my mind once my temper cooled. Watching this scene unfold, I was absolutely thrilled. A huge sum of money was about to hit my account. A luxury apartment, a villa, and shops were all within my grasp. To hide my excitement, I wiped my tears even more vigorously, rubbing my eyes until they turned red and the tears flowed freely. I was terrified that Zhou Ian might see how happy I really was and have second thoughts. Zhou Ian, you heartless scoundrel, you, let's go. We're going to the Civil Affairs Bureau right now. If either of us hesitates for even a second, We're not human. I grabbed Zhou Ian, ready to drag him to the Civil Affairs Bureau. With that tragic, resolute look on my face, I felt like an Oscar-winning actress reborn in that moment. I've always been so patient with Zhou Ian. It's rare for me to lose my temper like this, Qingyu. I'm so sorry. Zhou Ian gave a nod to his secretary, who understood immediately. After making a quick call, the secretary approached and bowed slightly. Mr. Zhou, the car is ready. I waited for Zhou Ian to leave, my face a picture of utter dejection. A phone rang. It was Zhou Ian's. Ian, you need to come now. Xiao Xiao fainted from a food allergy. I'm alone with her at the hospital. A woman's voice, choked with tears, came through the phone, filled with fear, panic, and a slow, creeping sense of dependence. Gu Qingyu recognized Shenli's voice immediately from where she stood. It was a voice she could never forget, not even if she lived 100 lifetimes. It had once been her deepest wound and her worst nightmare. Ollie, don't panic, I'm coming right now. Without a second thought, Zhou Ian spoke into the phone, his face an open book of urgency and heartache, making no attempt to hide it even in front of me. His current wife, from whom he was not yet divorced, Qingyu, Xiaoxiao's, had an accident. You know Ollie's health is fragile, she can't handle this alone, I have to go to her right now. Zhou Ian looked at me, his tone apologetic yet resolute. This wasn't the first time something like this had happened. In the past, I'd just feel hurt and sad, but this time, I was furious. We were literally on the final step, about to sign the papers. It felt like having a perfectly roasted duck served right in front of you, only for someone to snatch the plate away at the last second. Infuriating doesn't even begin to describe it. Zhou Ian, what do you think this is? We're not heading out for a shopping trip or a day at the amusement park. We're going to finalize our divorce, and you're choosing now to run off to your precious Ollie. Gu Qingyu, stop being so unreasonable. Xiao Xiao is still so young, and she's lost her father. You should have a little compassion. I was so furious I almost had a heart attack. That bastard. If we weren't still married and I didn't need to go to the Civil Affairs Bureau with him, I'd slap him across the face right now. Zhou Ian finished speaking and, without waiting for my reaction, immediately left with his secretary. I reached out, grabbed the divorce papers from the table, stuffed them into my bag, and hurried after him. Drive. Zhou Ian got into the car and gave the order immediately. I managed to squeeze in just as the door was about to close. Gu Qingyu, what are you doing here? Zhou Ian's brow furrowed involuntarily, his face still wearing that same cold, disdainful expression that kept everyone at a distance. I'm going to see just how sick Shenli's child really is that you have to go in person. Is the child on death's door or something? In my past life, when I was in labor, Shenli used the same excuse to summon Zhou Ian away. The situation was described as so critical over the phone that Zhou Ian abandoned me without a moment's hesitation, thinking of the child, connected to me by blood, who never even got a chance to be born and died inside me. That wave of grief and hatred surges up within me again. Gu Qingyu, I know you hate Shenli, but Shenli and her child are innocent. They haven't done anything wrong. I told you from the start I didn't like you. Targeting a child like this shows a complete lack of upbringing. If you don't shut your mouth this instant, get out of the car. Zhou Ian was never an easygoing man around me. His attitude was downright frosty. He'd only softened slightly earlier because of a sliver of guilt over the divorce. Now, worried about that wretched woman Shenli's child. He had no patience left. His face was thunderous. The deeper my hatred grew, the more I had to suppress it. If I didn't, Zhou Ian would have really made me get out of the car. At this critical juncture of our divorce, how could I let him slip away? Besides, that scumbag Zhou Ian and that bitch Shenli will get what's coming to them eventually. But that doesn't mean I can't collect a little interest in advance. We drove to the hospital in complete silence. The moment Zhou Ian got out of the car, he rushed to the nurse's station to find out where Shenli and her daughter were, then broke into a jog to get there. Terrified of being even a second late, I followed behind. When I saw Shenli and her daughter sitting there perfectly fine, Jiang Xiaoxiao, who was supposedly unconscious over the phone, was now sitting there with tears in her eyes. The mother and daughter wore identical expressions of pitiful fragility. All Jiang Xiaoxiao had on her face were a few measly red rashes. Seeing Zhou Ian arrive, Shenli ran over and threw herself sobbing into his arms. Oh, Ian, you have no idea how scared I was. I was so terrified. Xiaoxiao is my whole world now. I can't bear the thought of anything happening to her. Thank goodness the doctors were able to revive her. I listened from the side, a cold, mocking laugh in my heart. Anaphylactic shock isn't unheard of, but with just a few measly red bumps like that. It's not even a mild reaction. There's no way she could have fainted. It's a pity that Zhou Ian, that blind and foolish man, has his brain addled with shit. He believes every word Shinli says, remembering my innocent child from my past life, a child who could have been saved if not for that bitch. My eyes burned red. I charged forward and landed several slaps right across Shinli's face. Shinli was caught completely off guard, taking those slaps in a dazed stupor. Slapping her a few times still didn't vent my rage. So I grabbed her hair and hit her a few more times at random, putting on the full display of a wronged wife tearing into the other woman. Zhou Ian never expected me to make such a move, so he didn't even attempt to stop me. By the time he processed what happened, he was absolutely furious. Gu Qingyu, what are you doing? How dare you lay a hand on Ollie? Have you lost your mind? Zhou Ian looked absolutely furious, as if he was about to tear me apart any second. Not only did he pull me away from Shinli, but he was also ready to hit me. Everyone, come and see, look at this shameless pair of scumbags carrying on. Zhou Ian, are you really going to treat your own wife like this for the sake of that fickle woman who abandoned you back then? A crowd had already gathered around us. I shouted the words, staring accusingly at Zhou Ian, waiting for his slap to land. This story was about to get even juicier. I stayed silent the whole car ride to avoid being kicked out, but I wasn't idle. I'd already tipped off several top gossip outlets. Zhou Ian, the Zhou family heir, is huge news. They wouldn't miss this. They were probably staking out the hospital room before we even arrived, just waiting to capture some explosive footage. The camera flashes were relentless. That whole scene had definitely been captured. Gu Qingyu could already picture tomorrow's tabloid headlines. Zhou family heir Zhou Ian caught cheating, mistress and current girlfriend in epic catfight. As the Zhou family's meticulously groomed successor, Zhou Ian might have had his judgment clouded by Shinli, but he wasn't a complete fool. Taking in the scene, he instantly understood what was happening, and his raised hand froze mid-air. Qingyu, this is all a misunderstanding. Stop making a scene, let's go inside and talk. Zhou Ian's secretary immediately came over, intending to clear the area. Since I did this on purpose, how could I possibly let this farce end so easily? I'm not going in there. Why should I? Being in the same room as that shameless bitch, even the air feels filthy, and that little bastard she gave birth to, putting on an act at such a young age, truly inherited her mother's homewrecker genes. Who knows whose husband she'll ruin in the future? Qingyu, Xiaoxiao is just a child. How can you speak to her like that? I know you've misunderstood the past relationship between me and Ian, but we were truly innocent. Ian only came to help us because he felt sorry for Xiaoxiao, being so young without a father's care. Shinli maintained her usual victim act, looking at Gu Qingyu with an accusatory gaze as she defended herself. Hearing this, quite a few people began to show some sympathy. Shinli, cut the act. If you were so innocent, why did you throw yourself into my husband's arms crying? Have you no sense of boundaries at all? Stop playing the pure, delicate little white lotus. The reason your daughter has no father isn't my fault. It's because of you, her shameless mother, fooling around. Your ex-husband got a paternity test, found out she wasn't his biological daughter but just a bastard, and that's why he divorced you and kicked you both out. If I were you, I'd be hiding away in shame, but you, left penniless and thrown out, just set your sights on someone else's husband. With such shameless, immoral behavior, don't expect any courtesy from me. I didn't give Shinli the chance to settle this behind closed doors. I directly exposed her for what she was, laying bare her shameful role as the other woman for everyone to see. She's got quite the scheme going, coveting another woman's husband while trying to maintain her pristine image. Well, I'm going to tear off Shinli's mask and expose her for who she really is. Let her live in the disgust and scorn of the world. Forced to hide in the shadows like a common rat, a flicker of panic crossed Shinli's face. She clearly hadn't expected me to know her dirty little secrets. Oh my god, this is even juicier than I thought. The entertainment reporters scrambled to jot down every word they heard, and a wave of grim satisfaction washed over me. Zhou Ian's face was a picture of utter fury. He didn't believe a word Gu Qingyu said. In his heart, his white moonlight was a pure, flawless woman who deserved the very best in the world. Even her abandoning him back then was out of sheer desperation. Now, with her in such a pitiful state and being slandered by me, he must be utterly heartbroken for her. Gu Qingyu, shut your mouth. If you dare slander Ollie one more time, don't blame me for what happens next. Zhou Ian snarled the words at me, the warning in his eyes all too clear. Just when everyone expected me to keep fighting, I chose to shut up. I knew Zhou Ian's limits all too well. Pushing any further would make the situation spiral out of control. After all, the divorce papers weren't finalized yet, and the Zhou Empire hadn't fallen. It was enough to needle him right up to the line. Throwing myself into the fire was absolutely out of the question. Just then, the Zhou family security team arrived, cleared the scene, and the hospital room fell quiet once more. Shinli wept softly, her sobs filled with a sense of grievance. Qingyu, you've misunderstood me completely. As she spoke, Shinli turned an innocent gaze toward Zhou Ian. Ian, you have to believe me. That's not how it was. I would never do such a thing. Ollie, don't bother explaining yourself to her. She's just blinded by jealousy. I stood to the side, silently thinking to myself, you're the one who's blind and clueless. Serves you right for being led around by the nose by a woman like Shinli. Zhou Ian held Shinli comfortingly, his heart aching for her, but the look he shot me was vicious. Gu Qingyu, did you think a trick like this would stop me from divorcing you? It only makes me despise you more. Time for my performance again, honey. I don't know what came over me. Everything I said before was just in the heat of the moment. The thought of you taking me straight to the Civil Affairs Bureau to divorce as soon as we leave the hospital just, I deliberately brought up the word divorce. In matters like this, delay invites trouble. I'm sure Shinli would be more than happy to help this along and will certainly lend me a hand. Shinli didn't let me down. She launched into another round of persuasion with Zhou Ian, and as expected, the more she urged him, the more resolute his stance became. Ali, don't worry. I'll make this right for you. Since Xiaoxiao is fine, I'll go take care of this business first and then come back to be with you. Shinli nodded with deep affection in her eyes. Ian, Xiaoxiao, and I will be waiting for you. Zhou Ian stood up. Gu Qingyu, let's go. Nothing can change the fact that we're getting a divorce. If you know what's good for you, you won't try any more tricks. Otherwise, all the conditions I promised you before will be off the table. I was genuinely frightened by this threat, but I kept a perfectly indifferent face. Ian, you know I've never wanted anything from you. Money is just a worldly possession. All I want is to be with you. I was dragged into the car by Zhou Ian, fearing I might refuse the divorce and run off. Zhou Ian even had bodyguards stationed around. A cold sneer formed in my heart. Half an hour later, at the Civil Affairs Bureau, the clerk asked, are you both absolutely certain about the divorce? Have you reached an agreement on the division of assets? We have an agreement, and the paperwork is already signed. As Zhou Ian said this, he suddenly remembered that in his rush to the hospital, he hadn't brought the divorce papers. He instructed his secretary to go and fetch them. Hearing Zhou Ian's words, I took the divorce agreement out of my bag. No need, I said, I happened to bring it with me. Zhou Ian gave me a surprised look upon hearing this, and suspicion crept back onto his face. After all, when Shinli wasn't involved, Zhou Ian did possess a modicum of intelligence. Why did Zhou Ian get the feeling that Gu Qingyu was even more eager for the divorce than he was? That couldn't be right. This woman was surely trying to use this tactic of retreating in order to advance. He wouldn't let Gu Qingyu get her way. Seeing Zhou Ian hesitate to sign, I let out a cold laugh. What's the matter, having second thoughts about divorcing me? Do you find me better than your precious Shinli, and now you can't bear to let go? Zhou Ian couldn't stand hearing such things. How could he possibly care about a woman like me? Even though doubt swirled in his mind upon hearing it, he didn't hesitate and signed with a flourish of his pen. When the staff member stamped the documents and I finally held the divorce certificate in my hands, a huge wave of relief washed over me. My entire body relaxed, but I didn't let myself get carried away. I still had to wait for the assets outlined in the agreement to be transferred into my name. If Zhou Ian decided to make things difficult, I truly had no power to resist him. Right up until that point, I was terrified he'd have a change of heart and retract the terms he'd offered. That stunt at the hospital had been a bit too risky. Gu Qingyu, we're divorced now. I want you to stop bothering me. Take the assets I gave you and live a quiet, peaceful life. I didn't argue back. I obediently left as Zhou Ian demanded. Before I left, I overheard him instructing his people to suppress the news, ensuring that what happened at the hospital today wouldn't be reported. Sitting in the taxi, a faint smirk touched the corner of my mouth. I had no intention of stopping him. After all, I'd already planted the seeds. They could be unearthed anytime. It wouldn't be any fun if Shinli's true colors were revealed too soon. I'll wait until Zhou Ian and Shinli are married, completely tied together, and then I'll give them a special wedding gift, a bombshell revelation. It'll be so explosive, Zhou Ian won't even know his head is spinning. For now, the most urgent matter comes first, the asset transfer needs to be handled promptly. Early the next morning, I called Zhou Ian's secretary. Zhou Ian's secretary still felt some sympathy for me, his former wife, having witnessed all the pressure I endured for Zhou Ian over the years. He didn't give me a hard time when I called. He handled the transfer of the house and shop with remarkable efficiency. The 40 million Zhou Ian promised in compensation, plus the 50 million in installments, a total of 90 million, was all deposited into my account. With the property and the huge sum secured, I bided my time. 3 days later, I bought a particular stock. In my past life, I had come across an online story about a stock market miracle, an investor whose shares multiplied 20-fold in just 2 months. Back then, I had made a point of noting which stock it was, never dreaming I would get a second chance at life. It seems this is a golden opportunity fate has handed me. No one ever complains about having too much money. Now, with the compensation from Zhou Ian, I finally have the capital to make this investment. I threw 50 million into the stock market in one go. For the next 2 months, I had no mind for anything else. My entire focus was glued to the market, just waiting for the right day to sell off my shares. When my bank account finally swelled by $1 billion, I knew I could truly kick back and enjoy the rest of my life. Chasing those stocks for 2 months left me noticeably thinner. The next time I saw news about Zhou Ian and Shenli, it was splashed across the front page of the entertainment section. With me out of the way, Shenli successfully married her golden ticket, Zhou Ian, and became a wealthy society wife. Around the same time, my ex-mother-in-law also called me, asking to meet up. I have no affection whatsoever for this woman. Zhou Ian's condescending attitude is a direct inheritance from her, during my years in the Zhou family, on top of Ian's emotional neglect. This ex-mother-in-law never missed a chance to belittle and make things difficult for me. However, after some thought, I decided to go and see her. We arranged to meet at an upscale cafe. My former mother-in-law was dressed as elegantly and dignifiedly as ever. When she saw me in my tracksuit, a look of disdain involuntarily crossed her face. No wonder Ian couldn't stand you and divorced you. Just look at you, utterly lacking in class. In the past, every single look of contempt and every cold shoulder from her would wound and sadden me deeply, but hearing her words now, and thinking of the destitute life she'll have to face from here on, I just felt a surge of vindication. What goes around truly comes around. You called me here just to say this. Remembering her purpose for coming today, Zhao Jinping reined in her disdain. You're so useless. After all these years by Ian's side, you still couldn't keep his heart. You let that shameless tramp Shenli steal him away from you, although she never liked her daughter-in-law Gu Qingyu. In comparison, Shenli, a twice-married, scheming woman with a daughter in tow, was clearly after her son's money, which made her even more detestable, and the fact that Shenli dared to drive a wedge between her and her son was simply intolerable. Her goal today was to pit Gu Qingyu and Shenli against each other. She could tell her son still had some feelings for Gu Qingyu. Otherwise, he wouldn't have left her such a substantial portion of his assets. She hadn't known about it at the time, and by the time she found out, it was too late to stop it. Qingyu, I still prefer you as my daughter-in-law. Go back to Ian, with me as your backer. You and Ian are still the better match, so this is why she called me over today. Listening to my ex-mother-in-law's condescending encouragement to fight Shenli, I could only find it laughable. Mrs. Zhao, you've got it wrong. I was blind before to have fallen for such a man. A scumbag and a cheap woman are a perfect match. You used to complain I wasn't clever enough. Now, Shenli is just right for you as a daughter-in-law. A daughter-in-law like her is perfect for tormenting a mother-in-law like you. You people are the perfect family for each other. In the past, I was always obedient to my mother-in-law, rarely defying her, swallowing my grievances in silence. She was so used to flaunting her superiority that she never expected me to say such things. She turned beet red, clutching her chest in anger. Mrs. Zhao, given our past as mother and daughter-in-law, I have a parting gift for you. I'm sure you'll appreciate it. Gu Qingyu, don't think you can swagger off after swindling my son out of his fortune. A twice-married woman like you will never find anyone better than Qingyu. You don't know a good thing when you see it. And you'll live to regret this. Watching Zhao Jinping's furious tantrum, I didn't bother to argue. Time would tell the whole story. I placed the USB drive on the table, turned on my heel, and walked out without a care for the storm it would unleash on their family. I sent a copy of the same USB drive to the tabloids. Even though Shenli's life would be miserable after the Zhou family's bankruptcy, I wasn't about to let her enjoy even a few more months of comfort. This flash drive contains all of Shenli's dirty laundry. After everything that happened last night, I booked a flight out of S-City on the spot. With enough money to last me, I could travel the world freely and avoid the Zhou family's retaliation. While abroad, I kept tabs on the news back home. The gossip rags were full of stories about Zhou Ian and Shenli getting into a physical altercation at a social event, sparking rumors of a divorce before they seemingly reconciled. There were also reports of Madame Zhao Jinping airing her grievances about her daughter-in-law. It seems Shenli's life has been far from easy. I returned just as the Zhou family was on the brink of bankruptcy. I was strutting in my sky-high heels, with a whole row of 6-foot-tall, muscular hunks behind me carrying my suitcases and bags. They kept offering me water and feeding me fruit, attending to my every need with impeccable service. Money really is a wonderful thing, with enough of it. You can have any type of handsome man you want, each one considerate, gentle, and utterly attentive, gooching you. I never imagined you'd sink so low. Can you really not live without me? Is this how you debase yourself? A voice, thick with anguish and condemnation, exploded right by my ear, startling me. I only came back to see what all the fuss was about, but I never expected to run into Zhou Ian at the airport. Zhou Ian looked utterly haggard, as if he had aged years. The handsome, sunny guy beside me quickly patted my back to soothe me. Darling, you must have been frightened. Who on earth is being so rude and uncouth, shouting like that? Did they scare you? Seeing this, Zhou Ian's face darkened even more. He strode over and threw a punch at the sunny, handsome guy who was patting my back. The gorgeous, sun-kissed guy is all sweet and attentive to me, but he's not so patient with Zhou Ian. After taking a punch, he immediately returns the favor. Zhou Ian's lip is split and bleeding, and he glares at me with pure hatred. I met Zhou Ian's gaze with perfect composure. Zhou Ian, what's with that look? Do I seem like I can't go on living? After leaving a scumbag like you, I've discovered how wonderfully fulfilling life can be. With the breakup money you gave me, I've traveled across this beautiful land and charmed all sorts of handsome men. That's when I finally learned what true joy in life is. Fine, just fine, gooching you. Since I was the one who gave you this lavish life, I can just as easily take it all away. You'll regret everything you've done. Zhou Ian shot me a cold, ruthless glare before turning to leave. Compared to before, there was a new, menacing ferocity about him. I just scoffed, completely unfazed. Zhou Ian is nothing but a paper tiger now, stripped of all his menace. He's about to come crashing down from his lofty perch and sink into the mud. Besides, compared to a certain someone, the little authority Zhou Ian still clings to is utterly insignificant. The mere thought of that person sends a shiver down my spine. He once swore that if I ever dared to run, he'd break my legs and chain me to his side. Thankfully, that man has no idea who I really am. He'll never find me in this vast world. I stepped out of the airport with a line of handsome men in tow. Several luxury cars were already waiting at the entrance. The moment I got into one, a pair of strong arms pulled me into an embrace. Ching ching. Have you had your fun? You promised to marry me. No backing out now. The man's voice was doting and gentle, yet carried a dangerous edge. Hearing that voice sent a chill down my spine. I wanted to escape, but it was already too late. This was a troublesome entanglement I'd accidentally gotten myself into back in the States. It all started when I got drunk, took a fancy to a male model named Qin Shua at a bar, and brought him home. After a night of passion, I had no idea the male model wasn't really a male model. The next day, when I tried to send him off with a check, Qin Shua's face darkened. He handed me a check for 10 times the amount, then closed in and taught me a lesson I would never forget. I later found out that this Qin Shua was no ordinary man. Even in the US, he wielded considerable influence. A man this dangerous was way out of my league. Getting away from him wasn't easy, but I finally managed to slip out of his grasp and escape his sphere of influence. At last, I could enjoy the company of all sorts of handsome men again, free from that domineering tyrant's control. But on my very first day back in the country, Qin Shua caught me. Qin Shua, you know I was drunk that night. It didn't count. Besides, I'm just a divorced woman. Sure, I might be somewhat easy on the eyes, but there's no substance here. I'm really just common and shallow. Please, be the bigger person and let me off the hook. What a joke. Forget the fact that Qin Shua himself is far too dangerous. I still haven't managed to figure out the first thing about him. I just barely crawled out of the pit that was my marriage. There's no way I'm jumping into another one. Ching ching. Are you trying to back out of our agreement? The man's smile grew even gentler, yet I instinctively sensed a peak of danger. Remembering his ruthless methods back in the States, I quickly said, "That's not it at all. How could I possibly back out? I just need a little more time." A wise man adapts to circumstances. I've reached a point of utter despair. What a mess. How did I ever cross paths with such a demon? How on earth can I get out of this? Qin Shua looked at this naive woman. Once Qin Shua, had set his sights on her, she could forget about escaping him for the rest of her life. On a certain day in a certain month of a certain year, a wedding of the century was held in the capital city. By this time, the Zhou family business had already gone bankrupt. Shortly after the collapse, Shenli immediately divorced Zhou Ian and attempted to abscond with the family's last remaining funds. However, Zhou Ian saw through her scheme. He orchestrated a plan and sold her off to an old, ugly man in a remote mountain village. Zhou Ian passed out from hunger once more. In his dazed state, he dreamt of many things, a life utterly different from his own. When he awoke and looked up to see the woman's blissful smile on the giant screen, tears of bitter regret streamed down his face. Not far away, several police officers approached. "Mr. Zhou, you are suspected of human trafficking. Please come with us for questioning." The end. Story 2. In the middle of the night, his assistant called him, saying Lila Qiao had taken a bottle of sleeping pills in an attempt to commit suicide. Nico Lu went completely frantic and rushed to find her. That night, I had a fever of 39.8 degrees. I called Nico Lu, but couldn't get through. I called his assistant, but couldn't get through either. Finally, the pain became unbearable, so I took a taxi to the hospital alone. Unsurprisingly, the doctor scolded me, asking how I could wait until my fever reached 40 degrees before coming in. I said I had been sleeping too deeply. The doctor then asked, "What about your husband?" I lowered my head and didn't answer. After completing the flu A and B tests, waiting for the results, and getting my medication, it was already 11 a.m. When I left the hospital. The gloomy sky had begun to drizzle. I didn't have an umbrella, and it was hard to hail a cab in the rain right away, so I waited for a while at the hospital entrance. I caught sight of a Maybach parked not far away. I recognized it at a glance. It was Nico Lu's car. My heart leaped with joy, and I ran over despite the rain. Nico Lu. But the three words that had slipped to the tip of my tongue suddenly stuck in my throat. I stood dazedly in the rain, staring at the slender figure in the passenger seat, that once sensational white moonlight of the capital, Lila Qiao, whom President Liu had won with a speed of 320 kilometers per hour, risking his entire life. Nico Lu saw me too. Yet his first reaction was to pull the woman in the passenger seat into his embrace. That was his instinctive, protective gesture. In that instant, just that one moment, the blood in my entire body froze. Clearly, she was the one sitting in my passenger seat. Clearly, I was the one standing in the pouring rain. What was he protecting? And what was he afraid of? Afraid I'd pound on the door like a shrew. Afraid I'd drag her out like a madwoman. Afraid I'd make a scene. Afraid I'd throw a tantrum. I didn't do anything, just stood pale-faced in front of the car. The plastic bag of medicine in my hand rustled in the wind and rain. Had he spared me another glance, he would have noticed my discomfort. He should have felt heartache, should have been reluctant to let me get drenched in the rain, and should have explained things to me. But I overestimated my place in his heart. From beginning to end, he never let go of the woman in his arms to step out of the car. Merely watching me through the windshield as I stood in the pouring rain, those eyes were so distant they felt unfamiliar. I suddenly felt cold. The July typhoon weather made me shiver all over, but he seemed not to notice. Yet when the person in his arms merely stirred slightly, he nervously held her even tighter. I saw his lips move slightly. He probably forgot I could read lips. He said, "Lila, don't look." "Don't look at what?" "Don't look at me." Afraid she might be hurt, afraid she might be sad. Afraid she might question why he married another woman. But just last night, before that missed call, he was holding me and saying he loved me, biting my ear at the peak of pleasure, promising he'd never let me go. Was I just a substitute all along? The rain grew heavier, and I started laughing. Like a madwoman, I rushed into the street to hail a cab. Taxi after taxi rushed past me, either already occupied or on a booked ride. Water splashed up, and I dodged in panic, but still got drenched. Looking at the mud and dirty water stains on my white dress, the tears I'd held back for so long finally couldn't be contained and fell. That was the white dress he bought for me. He said I looked beautiful in it. It wasn't until this moment, seeing Lila Qiao in that white dress, that I realized how much of a clown I'd been all these years. The rain was heavy, raising a fine white mist from the ground, with distant skyscrapers and traffic streams all lit up. I stood in the pouring rain as the city lights came on, letting car after car speed past me. With the last glimmer of hope, I looked toward the Maybach. Nico Liu remained as dazzling and captivating as ever, yet from start to finish, he watched coldly as I struggled, my despair, and my helplessness. As if I were a stranger, in that moment, I was utterly crushed. Laughing one moment and crying the next, I ended up like a reckless madman, charging into the ceaseless flow of traffic. The blinding headlights hurt my eyes. I knew a car was coming, but I didn't move. I begged it to stop, to take me away from here, to help me pick up the shattered pieces of my dignity. Screech, a sharp, piercing brake sound rang out. At the same time, I hallucinated Nico Liu calling my name, his voice hysterical. As if gripped by extreme fear, Seijin, I closed my eyes. The Bentley stopped just 1 centimeter away from me. I took a deep breath, but due to the high fever, my body was weak, and I ended up staggering and falling in front of the Bentley. The Bentley's door opened, and a pair of long legs stepped out. It's been 3 years, and now you're trying to kill yourself. He stood towering over me like Satan risen from hell, enunciating each word. Seijin, trying to scam me. I looked up in shock. The man beneath the black umbrella made my heart skip a beat. 3 years had passed, and I never thought I'd see him again, but I couldn't dwell on those tangled emotions. I just wanted to grasp at the last lifeline, reaching out with icy hands, afraid he might loathe me or shake me off. I finally tugged cautiously at the corner of his suit jacket, trembling all over as I pleaded, Jean Yenza, take me away. A vein bulged at Jean Yenza's temple. The play between you two as a couple really surprises me, he said. His voice was terrifyingly cold. I didn't speak. Just gazed at him helplessly like an abused little rabbit. He finally gave in, picking me up and stuffing me into the Bentley. Just as the Bentley was about to drive away, the Maybach abruptly blocked its path. Nico Liu rolled down the car window, his expression murderous. You're not taking her away, not taking. Jean Yenza smiled coldly, disdainfully glancing at Lila Qiao in the passenger seat. You're looking for your ex-girlfriend. Seijin is looking for her ex-fiancé, fair and reasonable. Nico Liu's face darkened to the extreme in an instant at that one remark. He couldn't deny that before marrying him, I was Jean Yenza's fiancé. Jean Yenza rolled up the car window. With the roar of the engine, the Bentley made a wild turn and sped away. I don't know what expression Nico Liu has right now, nor do I want to know. I just hugged myself, staring blankly at the heavy rain outside the car. The torrential rain pounded against the windshield like silver arrows, swept away by the wipers. Only for more raindrops to crash down. Jean Yenza glanced at me through the rearview mirror. He turned the air conditioning to the highest setting. If you don't mind, there's my suit jacket in the back seat. You can wear it. I nodded but didn't move. For a moment, neither of us spoke. In the confined space, the ticking sound of the turn signal seemed especially abrupt. When he spoke again, what he said was, Seijin, what I just said wasn't a joke. I thought it was about the suit. I'm fine. Not cold, thanks. Don't understand. Jean Yenza's hands tensed with visible veins. Outside the car, there was nothing but the sound of wind and rain. Inside, his breathing was suppressed and restrained. He said, Nico Liu can reach out to his ex-girlfriend, and you can contact your ex-fiancé. Coming to me is still better than turning to other men. Even as I lay in the hotel bathtub, Jean Yenza's words still echoed in my mind. My heart was in turmoil. 11 o'clock at night. As I drifted in and out of sleep, my head throbbing with pain, I faintly heard the rustling sound of a man's dress pants. I almost forgot. Most of the hotels in the capital belonged to Nico Liu. I even used his black card to pay for the room, so of course he knew where I was and could easily walk in. Get up now that you're awake. Nico Liu's voice was terrifyingly low. I ignored him. When he spoke again, it was almost through gritted teeth. When did Jean Yenza return to the country? Suddenly flying back from Canada. For what purpose? To see you. Did you see him? Did he take you to the hotel? Did he escort you to your room? Seijin, speak, a few words. And Nico Liu wished he could grind my bones to dust. I suddenly found it amusing. I got up from the bed, standing barefoot on the cold floor, right in front of him. Shouldn't I be the one asking you these questions? You're my husband. Yet you went to see Lila Qiao in the middle of the night. What could a man and a woman alone possibly do? You held her in your arms right in front of me. So how dare you question and doubt me now? Nico Liu, how can you be so self-righteous when you're the one who cheated? The last sentence made him wince in pain. I've never seen him so nervous. nervous to the point of fearing he might lose something, his face pale. He tried to hug me. Sage, no. I didn't cheat, don't touch me. I didn't believe a single word he said. Sage, ignoring my struggles. Nico Lou held me tightly in his arms, forcing me to listen to his explanation. She's sick. She was already sick when she went abroad 3 years ago. Depression. For 3 years, her condition has only gotten worse. Her mother was afraid she might actually commit suicide one day. So she had no choice but to contact me and arrange for her to return home to recuperate, asking for my help. It sounded like a joke to me. I looked up at him and said, so just because she has depression, you can hug her, comfort her, and stay with her all night? I didn't. Nico Lou's eyes were streaked with crimson blood vessels as he gripped my shoulders in pain, continuously explaining, last night she swallowed a whole bottle of sleeping pills trying to commit suicide. I couldn't just let her die. I couldn't ignore her. Then you could ignore me. The thought of him holding another woman made me feel sick. And I struggled to break free from his embrace, but he wouldn't let me. I'm sorry, Sage. He knew I had a fever the moment he touched me, probably distressed, his face terrifyingly pale, apologizing nonstop. I didn't know you had a fever. I laughed and asked him a fatal question. So knowing the truth means you won't comfort her or hold her, you'll just make her move from the passenger seat to the back, and then let me get in the car to tell her I'm your wife. With that one sentence, Nico Lou froze in place. He didn't know how to respond. Even the mighty President Lou had moments of being at a loss. Suddenly, I felt utterly pathetic. Despite how deeply he had hurt me, I still clung to a sliver of hope for him. The last thing I heard him say was, Sage, her condition is really serious. She can't handle the slightest provocation. She doesn't know I'm married. She even thinks she's already married to me. I can't. I suddenly laughed like a madwoman. Lila Chow thinks she's married to you, so you're just going to go along with it. You won't even stand up for your own wife. If she says she thinks she has a child with you, are you going to sleep with her and plant a seed in her too, Sajin? The last sentence clearly hit Nico Lou's nerve. Veins bulging on his forehead. I have my limits. Then do you know your bottom line is very low? I struggled, but he wouldn't allow it. So I bit him on his chest with all my might, biting him fiercely. The taste of blood instantly filled my mouth. Nico Lou winced in pain, and in an instant, his forehead was covered in fine beads of cold sweat, yet he didn't pull away, using all his strength to hold me tightly. Preferring that I bite him madly rather than letting me escape even a little from his embrace, warm blood trickled down the corner of my mouth, as if with just a bit more force, I could have bitten through his flesh. At that moment, I cried, trembling uncontrollably as I wept. How did the man I pursued, longed for, and loved for 10 years come to this point with me? 3 years ago, it was he who knelt on one knee and said, Sage, let's get married. It was then that I resolutely destroyed the arranged marriage between the Yin and Jean families, bearing all the slander to marry him. But why is he treating me like this now? This is the first time in 3 years I've cried in front of him. Nico Lou didn't know what to do, his body trembling uncontrollably as he could only hold me tighter, burying his face in the crook of my neck, repeatedly apologizing. Sage, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. If biting me will ease your anger, then bite. Why? How could he pretend to be so affectionate after doing something so wrong to me? I immediately went mad, struggling with all my might. I told him to get out, to disappear from my world forever if he couldn't handle the Lila Chiao situation properly. Nico Lou's face had never been so pale before, as he pleaded with me. Sage, give me time, believe me. Okay, why should I? I shouted at him. Nico Lou tried to hug me, but I clenched my fists and resisted, hitting him. 3 years ago. It was Lila Chiao who betrayed you, who got pregnant with another man's child, who lost you by her own actions. Even if she got depression because of it, she brought it upon herself. What does that have to do with me? What does it have to do with our marriage? What right does she have to come back? Why should you care about her feelings while I have to bear the pain? Sajin, Nico Lou shouted at me as well. I stood my ground without backing down. What? A few harsh words to her and it hits your sore spot. No, that's not it, Nico Lou denied, struggling to find the words to explain himself. Finally, he took a deep breath and said, why can't you just trust me and be more forgiving, magnanimous? Nico Lou's words felt like a slap across my face, burning with a stinging pain. I took half a step back. Fine, you're magnanimous. So if I slept with Jean Yenza and then told you I was depressed and suicidal, would you still be magnanimous enough to hold me in your arms and indulge me in everything? Sajin, what did you just say? Nico Lu suddenly lost control, gripping my neck viciously and pinning me against the wall, his voice seething with rage. Say that again. I don't want to say anything more after arguing to this point. All I feel is pain, headache, back pain, and an even deeper ache in my heart. Tears slid down, tracing my cheeks before landing on his hand gripping my neck. His fingers trembled slightly, and his bloodshot eyes met mine. I didn't bow my head to him. Finally, he had no choice but to relent. His hand that had been gripping my throat slowly loosened, then moved to wrap around my waist and pull me close. That lofty man pleaded with me. Sage, you must not go to him, must not betray me, or else. I was resolute. Or else what? Nico Lu said, or else I will die. That day, to beg for my forgiveness, he stood in the heavy rain for an entire night. I thought, perhaps he truly loves me, perhaps I should trust him and give him time to handle the matter with Lila Chiao, but that morning, when I went down to find him, he had already left. His assistant called to say Lila Chiao had swallowed nails. I've never seen him so flustered before. When he turned to leave, he didn't even glance back at me. Had he looked back, had he asked me to wait for him, I would have kept loving him, deceiving myself, but alas, he didn't hold on to me. For the next 2 weeks, I didn't go home, and he didn't call me, nor did he come looking for me. I only found out about his news through the media. The head of the Lu Group is embroiled in a divorce crisis, with the company's market value plummeting by nearly 10 billion in just half a day. Former girlfriend moves into the capital's most prestigious residence, while the legal wife vanishes after being overwhelmed with grief. I stared fixedly at the last piece of news. And in that moment, just that moment, I couldn't stop trembling. I haven't divorced him yet. How could he? How could he let Lila Chiao move into our home? Clutching the early pregnancy test in my hand, I only felt ridiculous. I called the hotel front desk. Take me back. After half a month, the servants were surprised to see me again, their expressions even carrying an indescribable strangeness. I didn't dwell on it and went straight upstairs. Aunt Lu heard the commotion and hurried out from the kitchen to stop me, stammering, Madam, you're back," I asked. "What, shouldn't I be back?" "And no." Aunt Lu's face turned pale and then flushed, as if she was nervous or afraid of something. I said, "Move aside, madam, madam." She opened her mouth, glanced hesitantly upstairs as if wanting to say something, but swallowed the words that had reached her lips, only managing to utter, You'd better not go up, move aside." I pushed her away and went upstairs, but I had only taken a few steps when I heard a man's heavy, suppressed panting and a woman's intermittent moans. "Nico, I want it, give it to me." I stood frozen outside the master bedroom, watching Nico Lu pressing down on Lila Chiao's completely naked body. In that moment, chaos, upheaval, anger, and collapse all pierced my heart like sharp blades. The pain so intense it racked my entire body. I clutched the doorframe desperately to keep from collapsing. Yet still curled into a bow from the agony, convulsing uncontrollably as if on the verge of death. Aunt Lu, seeing me in this state, cried out in alarm, "Madam." Nico Lu snapped awake instantly. The instant he saw it was me, his pupils filled with shock, panic, and helplessness. He grabbed a robe and strode toward me. "Sage." I took half a step back, gasping in pain, barely able to breathe. I pressed my hand tightly against my chest, my voice broken as I demanded, "Nico Lu, why would you do this?" "I don't know, Sage." Nico Lu's face was pale, his words stumbling as he tried to explain. "I drank a bowl of soup, and then I wasn't in my right mind. I thought I saw you. All his words choked off when he saw Lila Chiao on the bed. "Nico," she gasped his name breathlessly, sitting up from the sunken imperial bed, her face flushed crimson, her eyes shimmering with misty ripples like water. Every inch of her heaving skin marked with traces. That scene of devastation, that absurdity, struck Nico Lu like a bolt from the blue, rendering him speechless. All my emotions erupted at this moment. Get out of my house." I went crazy trying to pull Lila Chiao, raising my bag to hit and strike her. "Sage." Nico Lu snatched my bag away, so I slapped her, scratched her with my nails, wishing I could kill her. "Sajan, have you had enough of this tantrum?" Nico Lu harshly restrained my wrists. His grip was so strong, it felt like he was about to crush my bones. I looked at him and suddenly started laughing. "Sage." Nico Lu must have felt distressed, letting go in confusion. "Did I hurt you, doctor? Doctor, what are you standing there for? Go call Dr. Chen." He shouted at Mrs. Lu, "Don't touch me." I didn't care for his insincere affection in the slightest. Nico Lu looked at me blankly, with fear and confusion, but more than anything, pain. As if he knew what I would do next, that proud, noble man pleaded with me in a low voice, "Sage, don't." I took one last look at him. I took off the diamond ring and threw it away. With that crisp sound, the diamond ring and the man I had loved for 10 years shattered into pieces at that moment. Pushing him away, I fled downstairs. "Sage." Nico Lu roared my name, chasing after me despite Lila Chiao's attempts to stop him. I heard violent sounds coming from the staircase, followed by Lila Chiao's scream, "Nico, someone help, doctor, doctor." Nico Lu was chasing in such a hurry that he missed a step and tumbled down the stairs, crashing heavily onto the steps. The impact seemed to take half his life. When I turned back, I saw bright red blood gushing continuously from his head, but I hardened my heart, pushed the door open, and walked out. At that moment, I heard Nico Lu's voice. He sounded as if he had gone mad. "Stop her, stop her." The heavy oak door closed behind me, blocking his view of me and cutting off all his sounds. "Seijin." I don't know how I left. Standing on the bustling road, I tilted my head back, trying to hold back the tears, but they burst forth like a flood, instantly covering my entire face. At this moment, I cried out all my grievances, pain, and resentment. Passers-by looked at me as if I were a fool. Paparazzi and reporters swarmed around. "Mrs. Lu, it really is Mrs. Lu, Mrs. Lu, Mr. Lu has brought his ex-girlfriend back to Huadu Mansion. Are you going to catch them in the act? I heard this ex-girlfriend is someone Mr. Lu risked his life for, and that he only married you to secure his power. Is that true, Mrs. Lu? Will President Lu divorce you, Mrs. Lu, Mrs. Lu?" One microphone after another was thrust in front of me, staring at those faces eager to devour me whole. I felt dizzy, as if I might collapse at any moment. "No one cares about my feelings, Mrs. Lu." A microphone was shoved right into my mouth, hitting me painfully. "Could you tell us what you saw at Huadu Shofu? Did you catch them in the act? Do you have any photos? Get away." I pressed my hand tightly against my chest, but they couldn't understand human decency. "Was it you who intervened 3 years ago and broke up Mr. Lu and Miss Chiao?" I writhed in pain. "Get out," the reporter persisted. "Are you actually the other woman?" She said. "Get lost. Are you deaf?" A man's deep voice came from the crowd, followed by the sound of leather shoes tapping on the ground. Amidst the tense silence, over a dozen black-clad bodyguards surged in, pushing the paparazzi and reporters away from me. I stood there dumbfounded, watching the path the bodyguards cleared for me, my gaze fixed on the man leaning against a Bentley at the end of it. Jin Yenza also looked at me. His eyes were deep and inscrutable, and I couldn't read his emotions. All I heard were 4 words, spoken in a low, restrained voice: "Come home with me." He took me back to the villa at Yanlan Mountain. If I hadn't run away from our wedding 3 years ago, this would have been my home. But there are no ifs, and he hadn't lived here since either. Yet the servants had never been dismissed, tending to the place day after day, as if waiting for him and me to return. When they saw us, every one of them was overjoyed. "Young master, young mistress." I didn't speak, didn't enter the villa. Just sat dazedly on the garden swing, staying there the entire afternoon. The servants tactfully left me undisturbed, and so did he. For as long as I sat outside, Jin Yenza stood by the floor-to-ceiling window in the living room, keeping watch over me, until the sun set and the vast Yenshan mountain grew chilly. He came out of the villa and draped a shawl over my shoulders. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Almost instinctively, he steadied the swing and began to sway. As if transported back to 3 years ago, he asked, "Are you hungry? I'll ask Wu Ma to." "Jin Yenza," I interrupted him, looking up and posing a sharp, fatal question. Just if I divorce Nico Lu, would you still want me?" Jin Yenza's breath hitched. The setting sun cast a golden glow over Yanlan Mountain at this moment, rendering it incomparably brilliant, enchanting, and majestic in every aspect. He said, "I will." At night, when I stood before him wearing his shirt, he was sitting on the couch handling official matters, looking up from the notebook. His gaze traveled over me from bottom to top, bare feet, exposed legs. I wasn't wearing underwear, and his shirt barely covered my hips. In that instant, his mind exploded. Grabbing my hand, he leaned down and pinned me roughly onto the sofa. The shirt collar slipped from my shoulder, my chest heaving violently from nervousness as he looked at me, and I at him, at such close distance. I saw the turbulent desire in his eyes, crimson, cruel, as if he wanted to devour me, destroy me. Yet he restrained himself fiercely, veins bulging on his lean, sculpted arms. Summoning my courage, I pulled his face down and kissed him. That night was turbulent, brutal, as if venting all the hatred accumulated over these 3 years, hatred for how deeply he loved me while I remained oblivious, hatred for how I fled our wedding for another man, heedless of ruining his reputation and my own purity. At the climax, he leaned close to my ear and whispered incessantly, "Aaron, I love you, I love you." In that moment, my mind went completely blank. A monotonous sound seemed to echo in my ears, familiar yet elusive in my exhaustion. Too weary to recall what it was, I drifted into a deep slumber in Jean Yen's embrace. I didn't realize what that monotonous sound was until I woke up in the morning and saw over 100 missed calls. They were all from Nico Liu. Yesterday, paparazzi and reporters all witnessed Jean Yenza taking me away. Major news outlets must have immediately pushed this explosive news to the top of trending searches. I wasn't surprised that Nico Liu called me. I turned off my phone and went downstairs, but Jean Yenza wasn't there. Aunt Wu said he had taken a private jet back to Canada early in the morning. I knew what he was going back for. Last night in his dreams, he kept saying, "Aaron, I want to marry you. I want to marry you." After possessing me, the first thing he did was rush back to Canada to tell his father and the entire Jean family that he wanted to marry me again. I have no idea how much pressure he's under, but I do know that even at this moment, he still left his assistant to help me. I asked Qing Yuan to investigate everything about Lila Qiao's 3 years abroad for me, down to the smallest detail, while also having him draft divorce papers for me. Qing Yuan laughed. "Missin. Regarding the divorce papers, Mr. Jean instructed me long ago. He's more eager than anyone." My face instantly flushed red. During breakfast, I noticed bodyguards stationed both inside and outside the villa. Qing Yuan explained, "Mr. Jean is worried about flies getting in. Until he returns, Missin, please refrain from going anywhere." I knew exactly who he meant by flies. I just hadn't expected Jean Yenza to guard me so closely. Qing Yuan worked efficiently, delivering the divorce agreement to me that very afternoon. I took half of Nico Liu's assets, along with a portion of the Liu Group's shares, specifically, the 51% he held. Staring at those few sheets of paper, I was lost in thought for a long time. It wasn't until I heard the sound of engines stopping outside the villa that I snapped back to reality. It sounded like many cars and many people. As I rose from the couch to see who it was, Qing Yuan stopped me. "Missin, please stay inside." Qing Yuan's expression was stern, leaving no room for refusal. He then directed over a dozen bodyguards to block the way and drew all the curtains in the living room. Through a narrow gap, I spotted the car parked outside the villa, a Maybach. Nico Liu stood beside the car, those eyes bore through, seemingly fixed on the curtains yet piercing right through to see me inside. With a terrifying gaze that seemed eager to slice me into 1,000 pieces and grind my bones to dust, I took half a step back, my face instantly turning pale. Why should I be afraid? Guilty conscience for betraying him. No, he betrayed me first. I'm just giving him a taste of his own medicine. What is there to fear? It wasn't until dozens of bodyguards stormed in to clear a path for him, and he walked toward me step by step in his tailored suit, that I realized what I was truly afraid of. I was afraid he would drag me back. Watching the fallen bodyguards and Qing Yuan tied up on the ground, my fear reached its peak. Clutching the divorce agreement in my hand, I kept backing away. "Nico Liu, you can't take me away, can't." Nico Liu's icy hand gripped my throat as he nearly roared, "And leave you here to keep cozying up to Jean Yenza. Seijin, you're dreaming." When Nico Liu brought me back to the capital of Huadu, he practically threw me to the ground. He gritted his teeth and said, "Seijin, did betraying me make you feel better? Did getting close to Jean Yenza bring you joy?" "Yes." I met his gaze without flinching. "Nico Liu, do you still want a woman who's been with another man?" Seijin, his suspicions were confirmed, and in that moment, just that moment, he looked as if he were dying. His eyes were terrifyingly bloodshot, the veins bulging on his forehead screaming that he was on the verge of madness, but I had burned my bridges, grinding each word into his heart like a knife. "Nico Liu, Jean Yenza is far more domineering than you." "Shut up." Nico Liu leaned down, pressing me beneath him. "What are you doing? Let me go." Panicked, I clenched my fists and struck him, but he seemed impervious to pain, venting his fury by kissing me. It was less of a kiss and more of a bite. He fiercely bit my lip until it bled, forcing the pungent blood into my mouth, then roared at me in despair. "Is he more domineering than me? Where did he touch you? Here, or here? Seijin, talk." He bit my neck, my shoulders, and as he saw the flushed marks left behind, His bites grew even more savage, his actions disgusted me. I struggled hysterically, groping across the coffee table until my fingers closed around something cold. I grabbed it and plunged it hard into his shoulder. Nico Lu groaned in pain, and crimson blood instantly spread across his shirt. I just realized what I was holding, a knife and fork. I didn't let go, instead driving it deeper with fierce determination. Yet he still wouldn't let me go. His strong arms held me tightly, crushing me. As if he wanted to break me into pieces and tuck me into his body so I could never escape again. Sage, I didn't mean to touch her. I drank that bowl of soup. It wasn't intentional. I didn't. I stared blankly at the ceiling. But I have. Forget him. Nico Lu trembled slightly as he slipped the diamond ring I had discarded back onto my finger. That usually aloof man buried his face in the crook of my neck and cried like a child. Sage, let's start over, okay, please. The diamond ring slipped off my ring finger, and I cried too. I made a request to Nico Lu, to have a private conversation with Lila Chiao. Nico Lu gave his permission. When I saw Lila Chiao, she was in the master bedroom, holding the Pomeranian Nico Lu and I raised, feeding it. Nini, why aren't you eating? Don't you like it? Her name isn't Nini. I walked over and interrupted her. She's called Xiaobai. I named her. It's you. Lila Chiao hugged Xiaobai tightly. Her gaze filled with hostility as she looked at me. I know your relationship with Nico is unusual, and I know he treats you differently. I tolerate your presence in Huadu Mansion out of respect and trust for him, but I hope you can behave with dignity and leave my room. Watching her act like the lady of the house, I suddenly felt the urge to laugh. You keep calling him Nico. You think you're Mrs. Lu, but have you noticed? There isn't a single wedding photo of you and Nico Lu in the entire Huadu Mansion. Not a single outfit in the massive walk-in closet that fits you, and even the Pomeranian in your arms doesn't react when you call it Nini. Word by word, I pressed closer to her. You don't have the matching ring he wears. You can't find your marriage certificate. Even the things are placed in positions unfamiliar to you. Not to mention skincare products that don't suit your skin type, under these circumstances. You claim you've developed depression. You say you thought you were already married to Nico Lu, Lila Chiao. You might as well say you've got amnesia. You can fool him, but you can't fool me. I don't know what you're talking about. Lila Chiao turned pale and took half a step back. Nico and I got married 3 years ago. The reason we don't have wedding photos is that he couldn't wait. He wanted to marry me. Couldn't even wait a single day. The clothes don't fit because I had a miscarriage. My body was damaged. I lost weight, and I can't fill them out anymore. Nini didn't respond because she was sleepy. I didn't want to listen to her nonsense anymore and called out, Xiaobai. The next second, the drowsy little one wagged her tail and barked woof woof at me. Those 2 barks felt like a slap across Lila Chiao's face. She suddenly became erratic, clutching the little white dog in her arms tightly. Nini, how could you wag your tail at this woman? The little white dog, struggling to breathe in her grip, barked twice. My heart ached. Give my little white back to me. She's my Nini. Lila Chiao suddenly screamed, not only refusing to return my little white but also carrying it toward the window. Sensing something was wrong, I tried to stop her. What are you doing? She suddenly looked at me and smiled. She laughed like a madwoman, like a pervert, like a lunatic, then lowered her voice and said something that made my hair stand on end. If it won't recognize me as its owner, then I'll just have to throw it away. Lila Chiao lifted Xiaobai up. Are you insane? My eyes widened in shock, and before I could react, I heard a loud thud, followed by Aunt Lu's scream, Ah, Xiaobai, Xiaobai. I rushed to the window. My pupils dilated as I watched Xiaobai, covered in blood, fall to the ground. I went mad. Why would you do this? It's just a dog. It's innocent. Why would I do this? Lila Chiao, who had been vicious just moments ago, suddenly became erratic. She seemed to be talking to herself or perhaps asking me, before suddenly clutching her head and crying out, Ah, Nini, Nini. Nico Lu arrived just in time to see Lila Chiao breaking down. His first reaction was to look at me. What happened? His demeanor made it seem like I had done something wrong. I wanted to explain, but Lila Chiao grabbed his hand, gripping it tightly and refusing to let go. Nico, I don't know. I don't know how Nini suddenly fell. It was you who killed it. I shouted. I didn't. Nini was raised by Nico and me with our own hands. How could I possibly? Lila Chiao sobbed uncontrollably, as if she might collapse the next moment, and Nico Lu held her. I looked at Nico Lu and said word by word. She was the one who killed Xiaobai. If you insist that I killed Nini, then I'll pay for it with my life. Lila Chow suddenly took off her hairpin and stabbed it fiercely into her hand and leg. Enough. Nico Lu snatched the hairpin from her hand, his bloodshot eyes met mine. Don't say another word, he was forcing me to compromise. To him, it was just a dog, but not to me. I smiled without saying a word and returned to the side bedroom. I took the diamond ring from the drawer, walked into the bathroom, and with a thud, tossed it into the toilet. Pressing the flush, I sent it swirling down the drain. To hell with love, to hell with starting over, to hell with this shit. I slammed the divorce papers onto Nico Lu's desk. He looked at me in pain. Do you have to do this? I didn't speak, turned around, and walked out of the study. I rummaged through the kitchen and found a fruit knife, then got a bucket, filled it with water, and carried it to the master bedroom. Lila Chow was applying medicine. Those few strikes left numerous bloody holes on her hands and legs. She demanded, "What are you here for?" I threw a bucket of cold water on her. Lila Chow was stunned by my action. "What are you doing?" I slapped her hard across the face. Lila Chow's face was knocked sideways. You hit me." I toyed with the fruit knife in my hand. "Since you're so fond of self-harm, taking sleeping pills, swallowing nails, stabbing yourself, maybe I should help you out. How about I just peel this skin off you and gift it to Nico Lu? That'll settle everything once and for all." "You wouldn't dare." Lila Chow's eyes turned fierce. "See if I dare." I raised the knife in my hand and thrust it toward her face. Just as Lila Chow felt the cold blade, she shouted, "Do you think he'll spare you just because you're his wife?" The knife in my hand stopped. The blade was mere millimeters from Lila Chow's face. A slight push downward would have sent waves of pain across her skin, but I didn't. My goal was singular. The outcome, I laughed. "So you knew after all, I'm his wife, and you don't have depression." Lila Chow's face instantly turned deathly pale. I was about to stand up when suddenly I heard a voice from the hallway. "Young master." I saw the madam going to see Miss Chow again. Could something go wrong? In a flash, Lila Chow grabbed the knife from my hand and slashed it across her own face. Screaming, "Ah, my face, madam!" The maid Lu, who had just stepped in, was utterly terrified. Sajin, Nico Lu went completely mad when he saw Lila Chow's blood-covered face. He rushed over, fiercely grabbing my hand, furious beyond words. "What have you done? Let go." My voice was terrifyingly low. "Sajin." His eyes were bloodshot. I repeated, "Let go." Eyes locked. Nico Lu stared at me as if looking at a woman he had never known. "I never imagined you'd become like this. Cold-blooded. Terrifying." I laughed. "It's not too late to find out now. President Lu, with her, there's no me." I enunciated the last 4 words with deliberate emphasis. Nico Lu's veins bulged on his forehead as he nearly ground his teeth in anger. "Fine, since you're so eager for a divorce, I'll sign it." He gave me half of his assets, along with 51% of the Lu Group's shares. I didn't take any of my belongings from Huadu Mansion. He had Aunt Lu throw them all away. I returned to Yanlan Mountain. Standing dazedly in front of the villa, I heard someone call out to me, "Aaron." Turning around, my gaze met Jinyan's worried eyes. He got out of the car, strode toward me, and pulled me into a tight embrace. Tears fell onto his shoulder as I told him, "I got divorced." He responded, "I'll marry you." On the day I went abroad, I mailed all the information Qing Yuan had found about Lila Chow to Nico Lu. 3 years ago, after Lila Chow went to the U.S., she married a Wall Street tycoon. However, due to her indiscretions during the marriage, being caught in the act with 2 black men, her marriage fell apart, and all her financial support was cut off. After that, she went down a dark path and set her sights on Nico Lu. In addition to Lila Chow's information, I also sent him something else, my ultrasound report. On the day I left the capital, it was raining heavily. On the private jet, I leaned against the window, quietly watching the city where I had lived for 3 years disappear into the rain and mist. Goodbye, Imperial Capital. The plane begins to taxi. We're taking off. Looking down, I see a speeding car on the hazy avenue below. It seemed to be chasing something. I wanted to see it clearly, but it was too far away. "What are you looking at?" Jin Yenza handed me a blanket, pulled me into his arms, and coaxed me, "Get some sleep." I withdrew my gaze and leaned against him. "Okay." I never knew that car was Nico Lu's Maybach. He chased me at a staggering speed of 431 kilometers per hour, trying to stop me, to prevent me, but in the end, he couldn't catch up. That day, the entire Imperial Capital was shrouded in howling wind and rain. Watching the plane take off, he pressed the accelerator to the floor. He didn't know what he was thinking, just gripping the steering wheel. heading in the direction the plane was leaving. A car came rushing at the intersection, the sharp screech of brakes tearing through the sky where the plane had just departed, followed by a loud bang. Nico Lu was in excruciating pain, his mind blank, but soon a faint figure emerged in his thoughts. It was his Seijin. He watched quietly. The corners of his lips parted slightly, wanting to call her name. But when he saw her smile at him, Nico Lu also smiled. Time seemed to return to the very beginning. Are you really going to marry me? She was utterly drunk, her body burning hot as she leaned against his car, exuding a sweet, intoxicating scent of alcohol, her drunken state utterly adorable. The smile on Nico Lu's lips deepened, even though he was covered in blood, even though the pain left him speechless. Sage. Remember, I love you. Exhausted, Nico Lu slowly closed his eyes. The whole world became quiet and ethereal.